She didn't resist when they handcuffed her. No questions, no shouting. She just stared ahead, calm, composed, dangerous. This wasn't a courtroom. Not yet. It was a coastal shooting range in Maine. But something in the air shifted the moment she was restrained. Something told everyone this woman wasn't ordinary. And none of them could have guessed that within weeks, her silence would crack open one of the most classified files in U.S. history. Morning fog clung to the dirt and steel at the open-air range. The salty breeze from the Atlantic whispered through broken wooden barriers. But all eyes were on one figure. She was young, maybe early 30s, dressed like she belonged nowhere in particular, faded jeans, a gray jacket, and a baseball cap pulled low. No one knew her name. She never signed in, never spoke. She just shot, and she never missed. Her presence unsettled even the most seasoned shooters. "She's back," one range officer muttered. "Third time this week." "You see that grouping yesterday?" another whispered. "That's Black Ops level. Clean. Surgical." She stepped into her lane. In one fluid motion, she loaded her rifle and took position. First shot, 150 yards, dead center. Second shot, straight through the same hole. Third, the same. The spotter's hand trembled slightly as he looked through his scope. This isn't possible. But something was different today. A government vehicle pulled up to the range. Two men in dark blue approached quietly, badges under zippy jackets, eyes fixed on her. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." She didn't answer. Put the weapon down. She placed it on the ground gently, turned, and extended her wrists without a word. As they cuffed her, everyone on the line fell into silence. Out of confusion or fear, they weren't sure. They thought that was the end of the mystery. But exactly 9 days later, in a small town courthouse where nothing ever happened, the doors swung open, and a four-star admiral in full dress uniform walked down the aisle. Veterans in the audience rose instinctively. The judge's hands trembled as she opened a sealed folder. The woman stood at the center of the courtroom, still cuffed, still silent, and just like that, everything changed. The courtroom had never seen anything like it. Old wooden benches groaned under the weight of reporters, veterans, curious townsfolk, and a handful of law enforcement officers who weren't sure why they'd even been assigned to this hearing. The woman had been brought in under charges of trespassing on federal land and resisting identification. Nothing major. But when the admiral walked in, the air changed. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Every person with a military past stood at attention, instinct overriding curiosity. The judge, a stern woman named Lucille Grant, who had handled her fair share of hardened criminals, suddenly looked pale. Her gavel trembled slightly as she brought it down. "Case number 407B, State versus, she faltered. There was no name on the file, just a sealed envelope with 2 stamps. Classified, eyes only. "State versus Jane Doe," she muttered, recovering. "Charges, trespassing, refusal to identify, possession of an unregistered firearm." The admiral walked straight to the defendant's table and stood beside the woman, nodding at the 2 federal agents who'd brought her in. They hesitated, exchanged glances, then quietly removed the handcuffs. A murmur rippled through the room. "Is she military?" someone whispered. "No insignia." "Then who the hell is she?" Still, she said nothing. Her expression hadn't changed since she entered the room. Calm, unreadable, almost bored. The judge leaned forward. "Admiral, I was not informed of military involvement in this matter." The admiral placed a small leather folder on the bench. "Your Honor," he said, voice clear and commanding, What you have in front of you is a federal override request. Effective immediately, the charges against this woman are to be dropped. Her record is to remain sealed, and all proceedings are to be dismissed with prejudice. Silence. The judge blinked. Excuse me. You don't have jurisdiction. Not anymore. The folder was opened. One glance was enough. Lucille swallowed hard. Clear the courtroom, she said softly. Now. It took less than 3 minutes. Every civilian was escorted out. The reporters protested. Cameras were shut off. Phones confiscated. By the time the doors sealed again, only the admiral, the judge, and the silent woman remained. And that's when the questions really began. She was taken to a secured facility 40 miles outside the city. No one knew her name. Her fingerprints returned 0 results. No birth certificate, no military record, no passport, no driver's license. It was as if she didn't exist. Yet she handled weapons like a Tier 1 operator. She could speak fluent Russian, Pashto, and Arabic. She had a photographic memory, tested unintentionally when one of the agents dropped a classified report in front of her. She returned it word for word without reading it twice. Who trained you? One of them finally asked. Still no answer. But what unnerved them most wasn't her silence. It was her eyes. They weren't dead. They weren't frightened. They were measuring, watching, waiting, like she knew what came next and was already 5 steps ahead. On the 10th day of her detainment, a high-priority case file landed on the desk of Director Wallace Bishop, head of a Black Ops intelligence division so deep it didn't even have a name. He flipped it open and froze. Inside was a photo of the woman, clipped with a note. Asset possibly reactivated. Contact Admiral Reeves immediately. Below that, a single line written in red ink. Operative LARK, presumed KIA, Operation White Ember, 2014. Wallace stood up so fast his chair slammed against the wall. That's impossible, he whispered. Because if LARK was alive, it meant something had gone terribly wrong, and someone very high up had kept it buried. Director Wallace Bishop hadn't left his office in hours. He stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows, the classified file still open on his desk behind him. Outside, the sky over Langley darkened, but his mind was racing too fast for the sunset to matter. Operative LARK, officially killed in action 11 years ago in an operation that never made the headlines. Unofficially, she was a ghost, a myth even among Black Ops veterans. She existed only in whispers and redacted reports. Until now. Admiral Reeves is on line 1, his assistant's voice came through the intercom. Wallace grabbed the phone before it rang again. You brought her in. There was a pause on the other end. Then, I didn't have a choice. Wallace's voice was low, controlled. She was declared KIA for a reason. No one was supposed to know she was still breathing. Not the Bureau, not state, no one. She was exposed, Reeves replied calmly. If we hadn't intervened, she would have landed in a federal prison with no name and no rights. Someone at ground level flagged her, but they had no idea who she really was. You know what happens to ghosts in chains? Wallace's jaw tightened. Where is she now? Safe House Bravo, off-grid. She hasn't said a word. Then, she's testing you. There was silence again. Wallace turned toward the folder, reading the final debrief written by the only operative who survived Operation White Ember. LARK went dark under orders. She witnessed the full collapse. If she resurfaces, burn protocol is invalid. Defer to her discretion. He whispered it aloud. Defer to her discretion. Back at the safe house, the woman sat cross-legged on the floor, hands in her lap. No restraints, no guards inside the room. Just one camera hidden behind a vent and a single glass of water on the table. They'd given up asking questions because the moment they started interrogating her, she started watching them. Agent Torres, the handler assigned to monitor her, wasn't even sure if she blinked. She just waited, as if she knew eventually they'd be the ones answering questions. He finally broke protocol. "Look," he said through the speaker, "we're not your enemy. You can walk out of here anytime. Just tell us why you resurfaced. Who burned you?" The woman slowly raised her head. For the first time, her voice came through the room like a blade through silk. "I didn't resurface. Someone dragged me back." Torres leaned forward. "Who?" She smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the kind of smile you give a man who doesn't know he's already dying. They did. That same night, at an undisclosed location, a high-level meeting took place between Director Wallace Bishop, Admiral Reeves, and a third figure whose name wasn't even on the Pentagon roster. "She's awake," Reeves said, not bothering to sit. "And she's not happy." The third man, known only as Keller, steepled his fingers. "Did she say anything?" "She said someone dragged her back," Wallace replied. "And we both know what that means." Keller's expression darkened. "Then it's begun." Wallace didn't blink. "Do you want her brought in officially, under our flag?" "No," Keller said. "She doesn't belong to us anymore. She belongs to what's coming." And with that, the room went silent, because what was coming wasn't a war, it was a reckoning, and she, the woman with no name, no rank, and a file sealed deeper than the president's nuclear codes, was at the center of it. Safe House Bravo was built for shadows. No address, no records, no power grid. Just a single steel door in the side of a forested hill, guarded by silence and the kind of men who didn't need names. Inside, Lark stood in front of a blank wall. She had memorized the layout on the first night. Every camera angle, every creaking floorboard, every second it took for the guards to switch shifts. But she wasn't planning an escape. She was waiting for him to come. And he did. Director Wallace Bishop entered alone. No security detail, no briefcase, just a man in a wrinkled suit and tired eyes. She turned slowly. "Wallace," she said flatly, "took you long enough." His jaw tightened. "You're supposed to be dead." "Supposed to be," she echoed. "Funny how that never sticks with me." They stared at each other for a long moment. Then he spoke. "Operation White Ember. We buried the entire file. There's no trace, no survivors." "You missed one," she said. "No," he said. "We left one." That stopped her. She blinked. "What?" Wallace stepped closer. "You think you went rogue, but you didn't. You were a contingency. Ember Protocol wasn't just about infiltration. It was about what came after. What you'd become if things went wrong." She shook her head. "That op was a setup. Our team was burned from the inside." "I know," he said. "And now they're back. Whoever they were, whatever they wanted, it's moving again. People we thought were dead are showing up in places they shouldn't be. Your name came up. So I came here to ask, what did you see before the blackout?" She hesitated, not because she didn't remember, but because she remembered everything. It was 11 years ago, somewhere near the Caspian border. LARK had led a 5-person black unit into a conflict zone under the cover of a false flag operation. They were told it was a weapons facility. What they found was different. A subterranean base. No insignias, no language, no power signatures. just silence and shadows. Inside were not weapons, but people, scientists, civilians, children, and every one of them dead, perfectly preserved. No wounds, no signs of struggle, just eyes wide open in horror, mouths frozen in screams, as if something had stopped time the moment it touched them. Lark had reached the command room first. There was no computer, just a single handwritten note. This is not science. This is prophecy. And next to it, a mirror. That's all she remembered before the comms cut out. When backup arrived days later, the base was gone, collapsed. No bodies, no signs of her team. Only Lark, unconscious at the edge of the mountain road, and her dog tags, burned clean of all markings. Wallace didn't speak when she finished the story. He just exhaled slowly and said, "That base. We found traces of its symbol last month. Same handprint, same architecture, in 3 separate locations." "Which countries?" she asked. He paused. "Not countries, corporations." That made her look up sharply. "Someone's trying to finish what they started," he said. Lark took a deep breath. "Then you need to let me go," she said. "And you need to fight. You saw me. You'll need gear, backup, clearance. No, she cut in. I'll need nothing." He opened his mouth to argue, but stopped. Because deep down he knew this woman didn't need help. She was the help, sent only when things were already broken beyond repair. "Where will you start?" he asked. Lark turned toward the door. "I'll start where it ended." And then she was gone. No goodbye, no trace. Just a ghost, returning to fire. A week later, in a desert facility outside Nevada, unmarked on any map and buried beneath tons of sand and silence, alarms began to wail. Someone had breached Site 9. No blast, no forced entry, just darkness on the cameras. And then the bodies. They found 2 guards unconscious by the elevator, another 3 in the control room, pulse steady but memory wiped, no signs of struggle, no security footage. The only clue? A burned badge left at the facility entrance. It bore a single word: LARK. She moved like a shadow between corridors of cold steel and locked doors. Her footsteps made no sound. Her breath was even. Every motion had purpose. Lark had been here before. Not this building, but the blueprint. The design was the same. Open central atrium, mirrored glass labs, biometric locks. Like whoever built this had copied a structure meant never to exist again. But what haunted her wasn't the walls. It was the sound, that faint hum, that same low frequency she remembered from the Caspian. A frequency that didn't echo in the air, but in the bones. She reached the main chamber, and there, beyond the reinforced glass, stood Dr. Elias Grayson, the man she'd once trusted to extract her team. The man declared dead 11 years ago. He looked older now. White hair, cold eyes, lab coat too clean. But he smiled like nothing had changed. "I was wondering when you'd come," he said. She didn't reply, just stared at him, steady and silent. "You weren't supposed to survive," he added casually. "But I guess that's what makes you special." She took one step forward. "You killed them," she said. "Correction," he said. "I freed them from limits, from fear. The children, the scientists, they were part of a much larger vision, one you were never meant to see. You turned prophecy into a weapon." "No," he whispered. "I fulfilled it." Behind him, a chamber began to glow. A low, golden light pulsed from the walls, illuminating what looked like a human silhouette suspended in liquid. Lark's breath caught for a split second. It was her. a clone. I kept your blood, Grayson said softly. Your neural patterns, your instinct. You're not just a legend now, you're a blueprint. Lark raised her weapon. Then this is where the legend ends. But he didn't flinch. Kill me, and this entire facility goes dark. Self-erase protocol. Everything we've learned, gone, including what really happened to your team. She hesitated, just for a moment, and in that pause, Grayson smirked. You still feel, don't you? That's what separates you from them. Lark stepped back, and then she smiled. But this time, it was warm. It was knowing, final. You're wrong, she said. What separates me is that I was never trying to be more than human. She turned, aimed at the wall-mounted server core instead, and fired. Alarm screamed. Red lights burst. Glass cracked. Grayson reached out toward the chamber as it blinked out of existence in a violent pulse of fire and collapsing steel. They never found a body. Not his, not hers. The facility was declared a rogue AI research site gone critical, covered up, forgotten. Another whisper. But weeks later, on a rooftop in Prague, a drone operator tracking an arms dealer caught a woman on the adjacent building. Brief glimpse. Gray jacket, baseball cap, a rifle she never fired, just aimed and vanished. When the intel was reviewed, one note was left on the report. LARK confirmed, operative active, asset does not burn. Because legends die, ghosts disappear. But LARK returns when the fire needs to be lit again.